Billionaire finds his long-lost sister working as a black maid at his friend's house. What happens next? What if the person you'd been searching for your entire life was standing right in front of you, but you almost didn't recognize them? Marcus Wellington had spent 43 years wondering what happened to his little sister Lily after they were separated in foster care. He'd hired investigators, posted on every website, and never stopped hoping. Now, as one of the country's most successful tech entrepreneurs, he had the resources to search everywhere, except he'd been looking in all the wrong places. On this particular Tuesday evening, Marcus arrived at his longtime friend David's mansion for their monthly dinner. As he stepped through the familiar mahogany doors, a woman's gentle humming drifted from the kitchen. Something about that melody made his chest tighten. It was a lullaby his mother used to sing, one he hadn't heard in decades. The voice was older now, weathered by time, but there was something achingly familiar about it that made his hands tremble as he set down his briefcase. "Where are you watching from tonight? I'd love to know in the comments." Marcus had built his fortune from nothing, climbing out of the foster system through sheer determination and a gift for understanding technology. Despite his wealth, he'd never forgotten where he came from, or the promise he'd made to find Lily someday. She would be 38 now, and he often wondered if she even remembered him. David greeted him warmly in the living room, pouring their usual evening bourbon. "You look tired, my friend. The new merger keeping you up?" Marcus nodded absently, still distracted by that haunting melody. The woman's voice had stopped, but something felt different about tonight, like the universe was holding its breath. "I should introduce you to Eleanor," David said casually. "She's been with our family for 8 years now. Wonderful woman, takes care of everything around here like it's her own home. Lost her husband a few years back, works 2 jobs to support her teenage daughter's college dreams." David's voice carried genuine affection and respect. As they moved toward the dining room, Marcus caught glimpses of a slender woman moving gracefully between the kitchen and table, setting out their dinner with practiced efficiency. Her back was turned, dark hair pulled into a neat bun, but something about the way she moved, the careful attention to detail, reminded him of someone. His sister had always been meticulous, even as a 7-year-old, folding her few belongings with the precision of someone who'd learned early that everything you owned could disappear at any moment. "Eleanor does beautiful work," David continued. "She's studying at night school too, working toward her teaching degree. Never complains, never asks for anything extra. Some people just have that strength, you know." When Eleanor finally turned around, carrying a steaming dish of pot roast, Marcus felt the world stop spinning. The face was older, marked by years of hard work and loss, but those eyes, those gentle brown eyes that had looked up at him trustingly when she was small, were unmistakable. A small scar above her left eyebrow, from the fall she'd taken the day before they were separated, sealed his certainty. Eleanor's gaze met his briefly, politely, showing no recognition. But Marcus felt his breath catch as one impossible, beautiful, terrifying thought crashed through his mind. He'd found her. Marcus tried to focus on David's conversation about business, but his eyes kept drifting to Eleanor as she quietly served their meal. Every gesture, every careful movement, spoke of a dignity that no amount of hardship had been able to break. When she reached across the table to pour water, he noticed she wore a simple silver bracelet, the same one he'd given her for her 7th birthday, just weeks before everything fell apart. "Eleanor," he said softly, his voice catching slightly. "That's a beautiful bracelet." She paused, touching it unconsciously. "Thank you, sir. It's been with me a long time. A reminder of someone special." Her voice carried a wistfulness that made his heart ache. David, oblivious to the undercurrent of emotion, launched into a story about his latest golf game. But Marcus couldn't concentrate. He watched Eleanor work, noticing how she hummed quietly, the same lullaby their mother had sung. When she thought no one was looking, she touched a small locket at her throat, and Marcus remembered giving her that too, with a picture of the 2 of them inside. After dinner, as Eleanor cleared the dishes, Marcus excused himself and followed her to the kitchen. She looked up, surprised, as he stood in the doorway. "Is there something you need, sir?" "Eleanor," he began, then stopped. How do you tell someone that you're the brother they might not even remember? How do you bridge 4 decades of silence and separation? Do you ever think about family? About people you might have known when you were young? Something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even hope. Sometimes, she said carefully. I had a brother once. Lost touch when we were children. I used to wonder. She trailed off, shaking her head. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be talking about personal things. But Marcus saw it then, in the way she looked at him, a spark of recognition fighting its way to the surface. If this moment touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up. The story is just beginning to unfold, and you won't believe what happens when Eleanor finally realizes who's standing in front of her. Marcus stepped closer, his hands shaking. Lily, he whispered. Your name was Lily Wellington. You had a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Buttons, and you used to make up songs about everything, even doing the dishes. Eleanor's dish slipped from her hands, shattering on the kitchen floor. She stared at him, her face cycling through disbelief, hope, and fear. That's impossible. My brother would be. Her voice broke. Marcus, is it really you? The years collapsed between them. Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. I never stopped looking for you. Never stopped hoping. But instead of the joyful reunion he'd dreamed of, Eleanor stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself protectively. You're a billionaire, she said quietly. And I'm just a maid. Look at what I've become. Shame colored her voice. I work 2 jobs, live in a tiny apartment. I never finished high school until last year. You must be so disappointed. Disappointed. Marcus reached toward her, then stopped when she flinched. The distance between them felt like an ocean. Lily, you're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived. You're raising a daughter, getting your education, taking care of others. I'm the one who should be ashamed. I had advantages, opportunities, and I still couldn't find you. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I tried to find you too. But Wellington's a common name, and I didn't know you'd become this. I kept looking for the scared little boy who promised he'd come back for me. Her voice cracked. Sometimes I wondered if you'd forgotten me completely. Forget you. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. Every success, every achievement, it all felt empty because you weren't there to share it. I kept that promise, Lily. I was looking in the wrong places. David appeared in the doorway, confused by the broken dish and the tears. What's going on here? Eleanor looked between the 2 men, then at Marcus. This is my brother, she said simply. The one I told you about. Have you ever been separated from someone you loved, wondering if you'd ever see them again? Share your story in the comments below. The reunion Marcus dreamed of is about to take an unexpected turn that will change everything. David's jaw dropped as understanding dawned. Your brother? But Eleanor, you said he was lost in the foster system years ago. I was, Marcus said, never taking his eyes off his sister. Until I aged out at 18. Then I put myself through college, started my company, and spent every spare moment trying to find her. Eleanor wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I stayed local, kept my name, hoping you'd find me. But as the years went by, I started believing maybe it was better if you didn't. I didn't want you to see me as a failure. A failure. Marcus moved slowly, carefully, until he was close enough to see the gold flecks in her brown eyes that he remembered so well. Lily, you kept your promise too. You stayed strong, stayed kind. You raised a daughter who's going to college. You're studying to become a teacher because you want to help children like we were. How could that ever be failure? The wall Eleanor had built around her heart began to crumble. I missed you so much, she whispered. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time something good or bad happened, I wished you were there. Without asking permission this time, Marcus pulled her into his arms. She was smaller than he remembered, fragile in a way that made him want to protect her from every hardship she'd endured. But when she hugged him back, fierce and tight, he felt the strength that had carried her through 4 decades of survival. "I'm going to take care of you now," he murmured against her hair. "You and your daughter. College tuition, a house, whatever you need." Eleanor pulled back, meeting his eyes with quiet dignity. "I don't need you to rescue me, Marcus. I've learned to rescue myself. But I need my brother back. I need my family." David cleared his throat, tears in his own eyes. "Eleanor, you take all the time you need. Family comes first, always." Looking at them both, Eleanor smiled through her tears. "Actually, I'd like you both to meet my daughter this weekend. Sarah's home from college, and she's heard so many stories about her Uncle Marcus that she probably won't believe he's real." If you've been moved by this incredible reunion, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that celebrate the power of family and never giving up hope. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the backyard of Eleanor's new home, not the mansion he'd wanted to buy her, but the modest 3-bedroom house she'd chosen because it felt like home. She'd insisted on continuing her work with David's family 2 days a week, not because she needed the money anymore, but because they'd become family too. Some bonds, she'd learned, weren't about obligation but about love. Sarah was indeed everything Eleanor had promised: brilliant, kind, and possessing the same gentle strength as her mother. She'd accepted Marcus easily, telling him over dinner that she'd always felt like something was missing from their family's story, and now it made sense. "You know what's funny?" Eleanor said as they watched Sarah teach Marcus to garden, something he'd never had time for in his busy life. "I used to dream that if I ever found you, you'd sweep in and fix everything, make all the hard parts disappear. But the hard parts made me who I am. They taught me things I needed to learn." Marcus nodded, dirt under his fingernails for the first time in 20 years. "I thought finding you would fill this empty space I'd carried around forever. And it did, but not the way I expected. It didn't erase the past, it gave meaning to everything that came before." Eleanor had enrolled in a graduate program to become a social worker, specializing in foster care. Marcus had quietly established a foundation to help families stay together and support children aging out of the system. They worked together now. 2 people who understood loss using their experience to help others heal. "Remember that lullaby Mom used to sing?" Eleanor asked as the sun began to set. "I sang it to Sarah when she was little. I'm teaching it to the children at the center now." "Sing it," Marcus said softly. As Eleanor's gentle voice filled the evening air with their mother's melody, Sarah joined in, then Marcus, their voices weaving together like the family they'd always been meant to be. Somewhere, their mother would be smiling, knowing her children had found their way back to each other, stronger for the journey. Sometimes the most important treasures aren't lost, they're just waiting for us to recognize them when they're standing right in front of us. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like this video, share your thoughts about family and second chances in the comments below, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales that remind us love always finds a way home. Thank you for joining this journey with Marcus and Eleanor. Stories like these remind us that miracles happen every day, especially when we never stop believing in the power of family.